So, hello and welcome. I'm here with Abigail Sugden, and she's going to chat to me about her Module 6 project that's all about using the Meisner Technique and looking at the impact that that has on presence. So, Abby, tell me what your title was and tell me how you arrived at that.
So my title was Living Truthfully in the Present Moment. And that comes from one of Sanford Meisner's quotes about acting. So he refers to acting as living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. So that's the living truthfully part. And then the present moment part comes from my interest in present moment awareness, which fits under the sort of umbrella of mindfulness. And so I wanted to explore how there are crossovers and a sort of interwoven nature between some of the aspects of Meisner's work and the aspect of mindfulness and in particular present moment awareness.
Yeah, it's really fascinating just in terms of putting it within that theoretical backdrop of mindfulness. I think it's so exciting. But tell us all about Meisner. Tell us how you came across it and what sort of training have you had in it?
So I was really lucky that I was able to train in Meisner Technique myself. I trained at ArtsEd and we were really lucky to get Meisner training there. And so I really found it beneficial to me as an actor. I think it's all about bringing you to the present moment and listening and responding. And I think that's a really key skill for actors, performers to have. And so now I'm looking at it as a practitioner myself. I wanted to dig a bit deeper into the method and look at it, but then also see the potential it has to help actors and performers feel in the present moment. So a lot of the work revolves around his repetition exercises, which are what most people are aware of and think of when we think of Meisner. And it allows us to sort of drop into and give our full attention to the present moment and what is happening there. So not coming at exercises with a predetermined or pre-planned idea of what's going to happen, and to just really be in the moment. And that's when I saw that potential to explore
Yeah.
it through the lens of present moment awareness.
So, in terms of Meisner, is it an evolving method? Is it still being developed as a methodology? Is it easy to access for other people to access or not?
So it's quite common in America, but it's less so in the UK. So there are more drama schools that are starting to adopt the Meisner technique. So it is growing. But obviously Meisner developed it throughout the 60s and 70s. So it's been around for a couple of decades and is really prominent in a lot of American naturalist theatre. So Meisner developed this practice himself in his neighborhood playhouse theatre over many years. Right up until his death, he was still working. So it is really common, but less so perhaps in the UK. And I think it does have possibly linked to some of the challenges. It's a very long-term methodology. So you build up the skills gradually over a long period of time. And so perhaps that's one of the challenges that we face in how can we teach it? How can we put it into the training that we offer? But yeah, it definitely is gaining momentum, I think, in the UK now. And I think people are beginning to see the benefits it has and are exploring different ways that we can use it. And I think a lot of the time it can be used as a sort of training and a drop in, a practice. It seems to be popping up in those sort of areas that we can drop in and use it as a regular, frequent practice for us as actors to kind of hone our skills and keep ourselves fresh in between jobs and things.
Yeah, wonderful. So talk us through. You then wanted to obviously really get some proper data on its impact in terms of how it's working within your practice. So talk us through your rationale and what you wanted to achieve with it more sort of specifically in terms of your project.
Yeah, so there's a lot of literature out there around the Meisner technique. There's a lot of practitioners who have written about it, but there's not as many, definitive studies that actually can prove its benefits. So that was something I wanted to design for my module 6. And so I looked at it through the lens of present moment awareness to give ourselves a measure. So present moment awareness is just how aware we are in the present moment, our concentration, our focus. So I used the present moment awareness scale to sort of give us that numerical data that can assess individuals' perceived levels of present moment awareness. And so I use that as a repeated measure throughout a workshop day where I implemented some of the repetition exercises of Meisner to hopefully pick up some data that suggests how Meisner's work can affect and impact our perceived levels of present moment awareness. And then obviously I had there was a questionnaire as well to gain more deeper reflections from the participants to see how they felt throughout the workshop.
And so during that workshop, talk us through that work, because that's going to be the bit that everybody wants to know. What did you actually do with them? So talk us how that workshop was delivered.
So we focused on the repetition exercises. So to begin the day, we just did a simple improvisation exercise where the participants got up and just had a few lines as a starting point and then improvised a scene. And then I asked them to complete the scale to assess their present moment awareness at that moment. And then we introduced the repetition exercise, so perhaps Meisner's most famous exercise. And so it involves working in partners to make observational statements. So person A might start by making an observational statement such as you smiled, and then person B then repeats that repetition back to them. So like you smiled. And so we build up that repetition where we're paying attention to the present moment and what's happening. And so we did a couple of rounds of that and took the scale again to see if that exercise had helped the participants become more present. And the data did suggest that was the case. And so then we progressed into the other repetition where we then can switch that around. So the you smiled, when person B repeats it becomes I smiled. And so we're taking the next step. So Meisner's work is designed to be done in steps, and each step informs the step that follows. So that was the thinking behind the workshop. And then at the end of the day, we repeated that improvisation from the beginning and took the scale again. So I had a couple of measures throughout the day to see how each exercise may have impacted the participants' present moment awareness. And yeah, my hypothesis was proven that throughout the day, each individual scores did increase, suggesting their levels of present moment awareness increased, possibly due to the exercises.
So you had two lots of data. So you had a quantitative measure. Did you have what was your qualitative data like? Did you have some of that as well?
So I had a questionnaire for the participants to carry out where I just asked them to reflect on their experiences of present moment awareness when they're performing, to see if they are aware of that. And quite a few did mention that they find sometimes that their mind does wander, they do go elsewhere. So it highlighted that, actors do perhaps struggle with staying present. And then I asked them to reflect on the workshop and the exercises of the day to see how they felt the exercises may have affected their present moment awareness. And their responses did back up the numerical data. So they were saying they felt more connected to their scene partner. They were more aware with what was happening in the moment. And so, yeah, there was a lot of positive correlations between the exercises and the impact they had on perceived levels of presence.
Yeah, it is really fascinating though, isn't it? Just in terms of that mindfulness and feeling very scattered. Do you think it could almost be a life skill, as well? Do you think it has a broader ramification in terms of it having a positive impact on our ability to distracted? I need to do it now.
Yeah, so one of my earlier modules, I looked at mindfulness and I created a series of exercises to help, encourage present moment awareness. And the data from that, so that was my the first research project I did, and that proved that taking part in those exercises improved their presence when they were performing or training or rehearsing, but also in their day-to-day lives. So I think it does have a massive impact, and I think the more we practice mindfulness, the more habitual it becomes. So the more that we take time to take part in activities and exercises that encourage that present moment awareness, the more likely we are to bring that into our day-to-day lives, and then also our performing as well. So I think, yeah, it definitely is a holistic approach, looking at you as a whole person, not just as an actor or a singer, I think.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And just sort of maybe going off away from the project a little bit, do you think there are other things in terms of group building, rapport, trust, other really important facets within maybe a cast or a group scenario or a teaching scenario that it helps to benefit?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think it draws you together, and it means that you can trust one another. So I think sometimes, experience as an actor, you can start to think, you can start to question, oh, did I do that right? Am I in the right place? And then as soon as you're starting to do that, you're not with your scene partner. And so I think, yeah, these exercises, these activities, or this idea of mindfulness can really impact how we work as an ensemble. And I think that's a really important skill, whether that's a whole cast working together, or whether that's, the cast working with a director, or in an educational environment. Like, do students and teachers have that two-way, trust, and that two-way connection?
Yeah, it's fascinating. So, question is, what next, if anything, in relation to further study?
Yeah, I think I definitely have got the research bug. I think I've always loved learning. I've always loved reading, and I think this MA has really helped sort of encourage that a bit further, and sort of like, open up the possibilities for me to be curious instead of just accepting something, digging a bit deeper and finding out. So definitely keen to use what I've learned and what I've tried out in my own teaching practice, and trying to sort of, definitely put it into practice now.
If you could build another project, what would you do if you were to take this a little bit further? What would be your incremental next step?
Oh, yeah, I would love that. So I think definitely to continue exploring mindfulness. There's so many tools out there that we have as acting teachers, voice teachers, singing teachers. But how do we look at ensuring that we are making the most of our time that we have with students? So I think I definitely would like to look at sort of maybe developing, exploring a framework, like a pedagogical practice for us as practitioners. Like, what exercises, what toolkit can we build of maybe exercises that are mindfulness based, that are beneficial, and can provide us with a sort of toolkit that we can dip in and out of to, to prepare students for a lesson, to prepare students for a rehearsal, or, prepare a cast for a performance. I think I'd love to dig a bit deeper into that presence and mindfulness aspect.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, I think I've learned a lot from reading your project. Certainly made me think, and it's been a joy to interview you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a joy to talk about it. I've put a lot of time and effort into it, so it's nice to chat about it.
Great,
Share the work.
absolutely, it's what it's all about.